Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Libor Transition, You Can't Trace Time, presented by Aite Group Senior Analyst, Audrey Blader. I'm Siobhan Scanlon, and I'll be one of your Aite Group hosts. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's speakers. Audrey Blader is a Senior Analyst with Aite Group's Institutional Securities and Investments practice, where she focuses on fixed income, foreign exchange, listed and OTC derivatives, and risk management research. Her work spans technological developments, industry trends, and market structure, as well as the impact of financial regulations. Joining Audrey today, we have Societe Generale Head of U.S. Rate Strategy, Subhadra Rajappa, and IHS Markit Managing Director, Jeff Marin. Mrs. Rajappa joined the firm in October of 2014 and is responsible for publishing thematic research on U.S. rates markets and highlighting relevant trading opportunities. Mr. Marin joined IHS Markit in 2012 and is responsible for market structure strategy and expanding the firm's trade processing services and platforms through new product development, industry partnerships, and acquisitions. So without further ado, I'll now turn the mic over to Audrey. Thank you again for joining us and enjoy today's webinar.
Siobhan, thank you very much for that introduction and welcome everybody to our Libor Transition webinar, You Can't Trace Time. Just a couple of words. I'm going to go through a few items before we kick off. As Siobhan mentioned, we will definitely have some live polling questions during this webinar. And once we come to the end of the discussion, myself and the panelists are looking forward to answering your questions. With the end of the Libor interbank offer rate, or Libor, looming just around the corner in 2021, there are a plethora of changes that need to happen before global reference rates sunset. There are about 200 trillion U.S. Libor-linked products out there, huge number. And these include instruments like interest rate swaps, FRAs, interest rate futures and options, swaptions, as well as a bevy of commercial products like floating rate notes, adjustable rate mortgages, and private student loans. Needless to say, a lot of eyes are focused on this development, particularly since it affects what we often call the real world. Recently, I was reading an article written in the local press by the Jacksonville, Florida Bar Association called The Libor. It's been called the world's most important number. I thought that was a great title. The author is underwriting counsel for First American Title Insurance Co. And his comments put forth some really important points. For example, he mentions that Libor-tied ARMs, or adjustable rate mortgages, continue to be issued without addressing the end of Libor, or they have broad fallback language, two concerning points. This is part of a discussion during the recent webinar by Risk as well, but it's also really interesting to see it pop up locally. The mention of Libor's transition will impact the buy side and the sell side, infrastructure firms, data providers, tech firms, and others preparing for this monumental change. As you'll see in this discussion, education is an important component to a smooth transition from Libor to the secured overnight financing rate, or SOFR, at all levels.